And thanks everyone for joining us today. I have somehow been assigned 30 minutes to try to recap all of Elevate. So that seems like a daunting task, and I'm going to try to get through as much as possible, share some of the highlights for you. And if you did register to attend and either watch the sessions or miss some of them, hopefully this will at least help you focus and maybe go back and watch some of them again to get as much out of it as you possibly can. So let's get started. So for starters, as Karen mentioned, and this was not the normal Elevate. We're used to going out to Utah and seeing some pretty scenic views, enjoying the company of our colleagues and learning a lot about NetDocuments. And so that didn't happen this year. But as we are accustomed to, we're also used to NetDocuments in the tradition they have in terms of being a secure platform, a secure document management provider, and the innovation that they deliver. So NetDocuments brought those two traits together this year to deliver Elevate 2020, and I think they did a fantastic job. So as we go through, they did a few things to keep things normal for us. Going back with the tradition, there was a conference theme that they stuck with throughout. Josh Baxter provided an executive overview, and others contributed some information as we went through the conference. There was the always inspiring storytelling by Alvin and his roadmap update. Plenty of numbers were shared, and so we'll talk about a few of those. And then, of course, some of the meat of the conference was really the product news, the roadmap on what they have delivered, what's pending release, and what's on the future roadmap, and then customer stories. So they kept a lot of this pretty consistent for us to get what the information we were accustomed to receiving. And as we talk about the theme, this was a little different for us though, because usually you go to Elevate, you're learning about NetDocuments. There's a lot of information being shared, but there was a different vibe this year. There was really that personal touch of we've all been going through quite an interesting year in 2020. And they really let the personal aspect of this reflect on the conference in terms of the topics, the messaging that was shared, and some of the very inspirational stories. So that was the theme of Elevate, is inspiration for the next decade. As I mentioned before, Josh did give an executive recap, and as we expected, there's been continued growth. He noted 25% revenue growth over the last year, all of it being organic. 560 new customers, 67% of those new customers coming from their competition, and that they're approaching 3,000 firms globally now running the NetDocuments platform. In addition, during what was a very questionable time for a lot of businesses, Q2 was huge for them. I believe he noted that that was their largest Q2 in the history of the company in terms of the number of new customers that they brought on. So that shows a lot about the relevance of their platform and people's need to go and rely on someone to deliver for them that document management solution that they couldn't have otherwise gotten. But then it kind of changed into the messaging of this. As I mentioned, there was really a personal touch here. And Josh was talking about how they found themselves asking more of the why question. Why are we doing what we're doing? Where are we finding purpose? How are we helping people, both professionally and personally? And so that was reflected in his opening remarks and then throughout the conference. And then the last point that he kind of touched on there was their FedRAMP update. And so, NetDocuments announced that they are now officially FedRAMP ready. They are one of only 28 vendors that are at that classification level. So it's pretty impressive to know that the NetDocuments platform, which we already knew was very secure and reliable, has gone a step further now, and they've achieved another level of certification in terms of being FedRAMP ready and moving forward from there. The other thing I'll point out is that they noted that they did it in under 9 months, which seems like quite an impressive feat for achieving that. Then we transitioned into Alvin and his storytelling. And so, as we're accustomed to, Alvin always has interesting stories and ways of relating real-world events and activities back to NetDocuments and the platform. And so, this year's theme was revolving around coins. And so, no, we're not talking about Alvin going and breaking his piggy bank to fund the startup when NetDocuments started with the Duncan brothers. Sorry, went the wrong way. What we're talking about is he basically did all of this research about coins in the world and how they're relevant and characteristic of those coins, and then tying it back to the NetDocuments platform. And so as we looked back, he's then saying NetDocuments is really, they have their own coin. And there are two sides to this coin. One is the platform itself, and that's the infrastructure and the security, the encryption, all of those things that we've come to know and rely upon from NetDocuments. They're one cloud, it being extensible. encryption at all aspects of the platform, being a unified service and the level of compliance that they're achieving and that you're inheriting. But then the other side of that coin was what we were getting into, talking about the actual solutions that they're delivering. And so they've got organize, protect, plan, deliver, and learn. But the main theme here was that because of that one side of the coin being the platform that's out there and established and capable, it allows them to then deliver the types of solutions that they've been able to produce in the last year. And so it's two sides working together, but that is the NetDocuments coin. And as we talk about that, Alvin then transitioned into talking about their delivering on their promise. And so if you've ever attended Elevate, you're used to seeing the slide where we basically list out all the items they've achieved over the last year, 18 months. And so within that slide, he basically listed out approximately 15 commitments that they delivered on since Elevate of 2019. And so it was some significant items: folder packs, dynamic profiling, subversioning, end email for Office 365 without any sort of client installation, chat link providing the Teams integration, the Smart View previewer, net knowledge with the BA Insights engine powering that, as we mentioned, the FedRAMP readiness, and then their German data centers. That's just a small number of the items that they highlighted that they've delivered within the last year. And then there were a handful of items on that. They usually give you an 18-month roadmap targeting what they're going to deliver for you in that next year and a half. And so there's a handful that have yet to be delivered, but they're well on their way and they're coming within the next 6 months. And that included things like the ND iOS and Android for Intune for mobile device management, ND Mail for Gmail, which we know a lot of customers are out there waiting for, Workspace Security Manager, which is giving us some powerful security tools in terms of applying ethical walls and other types of security, multi-factor authentication for external users, and one of the most impressive ones to me was some of the analytics that they're going to be delivering. So those are all things that are well on their way that should be coming within the next 6 months that they were highlighting during this presentation. And the other point we make here is that Alvin talked about the fact that that power of the platform, which we hit on earlier, is basically still the power of the only one that meets these expectations. So when we talk about the fact of them being a true multi-tenant cloud for legal, having unmatched security, the robustness of their platform, and all the capabilities they're delivering, there really is no other provider within the legal space that's delivering that level of capabilities to you. So that just all kind of comes back to this same coin, that single coin with two sides powering it, but it's very unique in what they're able to deliver. So let's talk about the numbers. And so these numbers were shared across various sessions, but very impressive. 300 plus go lives in the last 12 months. So as we saw with the pandemic, certain business activities slowed down, certain activities picked up. But in terms of the number of organizations moving to NetDocuments, 300 over the last 12 months. So that's pretty incredible. And these numbers will kind of reflect later on some of the other factors that we're looking at. They're approaching 11 billion files within the NetDocuments platform that they're supporting. And then from the indexing perspective, which indexing is a very critical aspect to the document management platform, 300 documents per second are indexed and 10,000 searches per minute are processed within their platform. So you can see the volume that they're delivering. And NetDocuments OCR, which is one of their newer offerings, it's basically already OCR and processed 55 million documents to date. And so you can kind of see some of the volume that's being processed through there on their platform. And they did also bring on a new German data center, which already has exceeded 6,000 users. So these are just some of the numbers that they shared, but very impressive in terms of what they've been able to deliver. On top of all this, they shared that the last 12 months have been the best uptime stats in NetDocuments' history. And so when we talk about the growth, we talk about the expansion, the number of users they brought on board, all of those go lives, and the fact that they've continued to deliver new services, all of that and still achieving the best uptime they've ever had. And so you can see here on this slide I've shared, they have the 4 service status pages for the different data centers. You can go out there and check. I went and checked all 4 of them this morning, and for the last 90 days, each of them show all green in terms of their uptime. And so it's very impressive that they've been able to achieve this level of stability at a time when a lot of other things are happening that make things questionable, and they're yet still delivering on new solutions, onboarding new customers, and still continue to deliver a solid service. So as we get into product news, the messaging this year really transitioned from products to solutions. And so they've started this convention of talking about groups of their offerings that work well together. So we've got Organize, we've got protect, plan, deliver, and learn. And kind of going back to that coin concept, you can see where all of these come together to form the NetDocuments Solutions coin. So we're going to talk about each of these individually. So as we talk about organize, this is kind of your core traditional document management. It's the document management component. It's the predictive email capture of ND mail. It's the NetDocuments OCR that we talked about. It now also includes Power Automate connector that allows you to do some automation with the Microsoft Forms technology and working within NetDocuments, programming that doesn't really require in-depth knowledge of coding. And so it's a very powerful tool that we have some exciting ideas about. And then there are trust services. And the trust services are really their ability to help support you in any security audits that you're having to undergo from your customers, from your partners, wherever that may drive from the organization itself. But they're basically making things readily available for you so that within your own repository, you can go and access all the materials necessary to help assist you with those audits. So what's new as far as the organized solution is involved? Folder packs. And so traditionally speaking, NetDocuments has had workspaces that were basically leveraging filters or folders, but those folder structures were just a single level when we talked about workspace templates. Well, folder packs is taking this to the next level now. And so we can apply more elaborate folder structures to workspaces. And initially with its release, which I believe was actually scheduled for today, I've yet to see it, but I believe folder packs phase 1 release was today. And that's going to allow administrators to apply those folder pack templates onto workspace templates. And so any new workspace that gets created can have these more elaborate folder structures applied. Phase 2 will then extend to administrators being able to apply those folder packs to existing workspaces. And phase 3 will allow administrators and end users to apply folder packs on existing workspaces. And phase 2 and 3 are expected in 2021. But as I mentioned, phase 1 should be today or very soon. Dynamic profile attributes is another one of the new features. We've seen a number of firms already take advantage of this functionality in terms of being able to use different fields to drive other fields to display and to either default or even determine those fields. And it basically greatly enhances your ability to apply metadata as needed to different types of content. They also demonstrated the new profile details in the viewer. And so I don't know if any of you have worked with the previewer while it was in beta, but it's a much more modern interface. It's basically had a complete redesign in terms of what it's displaying. It's showing you information about who has access visually, representing that access. And it also gives you a tree-like view of the locations. And so if I needed to go see where a document was stored, I no longer get one basic location that I can click and jump to. I can technically see the entire tree structure of where it resides and potentially navigate within that. So it's a much more modern and user-friendly interface. The previewer itself is a high fidelity previewer with a lot of functionality to it. And that previewer, as we talk about Smart View, is what's included in this organized product offering. So we'll talk a little bit later about additional enhancements to the Smart View, but the previewer itself is bundled in there. In terms of ND Mail, you now have the ability to do location pinning. So as you're using the predictive nature of ND Mail, you may have certain locations that you file to more frequently than others. You have the ability now to pin those locations so that they always appear within your list, and then any of the predictions will fall below those. And so you can start to have a few favorites there that you can easily click and file to. And then speaking of ND Click 1.4. And the big thing about ND Click 1.4 is it's targeted enhancements for multi-user environments. So for those firms that are running Citrix terminal server or other types of multi-user environments where they've been struggling with the coexistence of users, ND Click 1.4 has significant enhancements that should address any of those issues and support those multi-user environments. And that's expected to be released within the coming weeks, so very soon. In terms of what's coming, in terms of the organized solution, we have a handful of things here. One of them that was very impressive was the Modify Access redesign panel. So if we're familiar with going in and applying access, we know we can kind of go into a document and go into the access, find groups, show members of those groups and kind of move them over and pick and choose what type of access they'll have. Well, they've completely redesigned that and give you a much more searchable interface, a user-friendly interface to find users and groups and to apply access to those documents. So that's a very welcome change there. They're also introducing the concept of homepage delegation, where I can basically, just like I could with my mailbox within Outlook, I can basically delegate rights to my homepage so that we can collaboratively maintain favorites and categories and sections for users to kind of work within. And that way I may offload some of the efforts of putting some of my favorites together to another user. There's also enhanced localization support as they continue to expand globally, supporting different languages and being able to support and install software that will support those, even within their dialog boxes. And a couple of impressive features that were listed there. One was the email conversation view within the details pane, where it's going to provide you the capability to quickly access the conversations of email threads right from the details pane of a given email. So it's a very slick tool there. And also related to email is what they're referring to as their attach match. And the idea here is that as you've composed a document, you send it out for someone else to review, they reply back with a revised version. They're building the technology that will allow you to either manually or automatically relate that document back to the document within your NetDocuments platform and save it as a new version. So it's going back and doing the predictive filing of that content and helping you more easily save that back to the document management system. So they're referring that as attach match, and we'll expect that to be coming within the coming year as well. So that's the organized platform. As we go on into the next one we'll talk about is protect. And so protect, as you would imagine, it's all about security. It includes DLP, it includes Workspace Security Manager. And DLP has been out there for a little while. Workspace Security Manager is very new, and that's the concept of enforcing need-to-know security. The fact that I can apply security to matter content and enforce that and basically apply ethical walls and giving us a lot of power that we previously kind of probably did manually or in other fashions, but now we'll be able to enforce that immediately with this tool. There's also the idea of geo-aware storage, and so we can use things like FlexStore with NetDocuments or Azure data centers. Then there's FlexStore private storage using a new solution combining Nutanix and Sanity solutions to give you the ability to kind of put that storage wherever you see fit. And then there's FlexStore Pro. FlexStore Pro is kind of a caching server concept. It's the idea that the data will still reside in the NetDocuments data center, but we can now have devices across the country, across the globe, more closely aligned with where our users are, and it will cache content that's more regularly used or predictively used by those users and make that retrieval much faster than having to pull it across a much larger distance. So that's the geo-aware storage. And then the last item here mentioned here is the granular encryption keys. And so, customer managed encryption keys is something that's been out there for a while. The idea that you can control access to your matter content, you can revoke keys as you see fit and then restore them as appropriate. And this all goes back to your ownership of the data, your ability to protect yourself from anyone else getting access to it. So what's new when it comes to protect? We've got metadata embedding. And so when we talk about DLP, it's the idea that as policies are applied, that information can now be tagged on the Word document within custom Word properties and be available to use in other systems. And so that is being applied to Microsoft Office documents. And then it's also going to extend it next year to support PDFs. So the same thing would happen within PDFs. There would be custom attributes. This data would be applied to those PDFs and travel with it, so you can enforce those policies wherever that document resides. What's coming in terms of protect? They have some additional DLP policies, which include requiring you to open documents in Office Online. So maybe you don't want that document to ever be opened on a local machine. You can force it to be opened to Office Online. You can enforce read-only access where the users will only be able to use the previewer to view content, and they wouldn't be able to open that document within the native application. And you can prevent refiling of content in case you're trying to enforce security is not changed. In addition, they're going to provide integration with the Microsoft 365 DLP solution as it's released. They're preparing for that. That's part of what all this DLP and the metadata tagging will come in back to. And some very impressive reporting. And so we'll talk about things like analytics a little later, but within the Protect solution, reporting will become pretty robust where you're going to be able to provide reporting on abnormal behavior and generating alerts and notifications. And so that's something we're looking forward to within the coming year. Next, we're going to move into Organize. Oops, sorry, I think I went the wrong way again. Sorry, the wrong button. So next, we're going to go into Plan. And so what does the Plan solution include? It's Chat Link, Smart View, tasks, and any thread. If you're not familiar with Chat Link, that provides the Microsoft Teams integration to NetDocuments. Smart View, as we kind of hinted at before, is the new high fidelity previewer. That's already part of Organize, but there's additional functionality that can be enabled for margin notes and a findings concept that's part of the plan solution here. And so, when we start talking about, if you've historically seen them talk about entity extraction with their search, that's what we're getting into with findings and the ability to basically extract information about individuals, organizations, dollar amounts, all sorts of things like that will be coming through in the findings portion of Smart View. Within Smart View, you'll also be able to search within the document, finding those instances and bounce around and navigate right within that document itself. So it's really expanding the search capabilities that even once you're within the previewer, now I can actually navigate within the document, finding results and leveraging all that entity information that's been exposed to me. And then the last piece of Smart View is the embedded conversations and the fact that I can annotate documents right through the previewer. Again, this is all about enabling you to fully interact with these documents without even needing to have other applications installed or downloading them locally to open them within a local app. It's really giving you a lot of functionality directly within the platform that doesn't require anything outside of the platform to work. Okay. The next item is tasks. And so tasks is something that we've been eagerly awaiting. It's going to enable project management concepts. And with task boards and assignments, you'll be able to have a variety of task boards that you can work documents through a workflow and an approval process. You can assign and change assignments. You'll have your own personal view of the tasks that are assigned to you and what the status is for those. And so that's going to be very powerful in adding aspects of workflow to NetDocuments. And that's currently released in limited capacity. So obviously that's out there now being used by some customers, and it will expand beyond that very soon. And then ND Thread, not to make light of ND Thread, but ND Thread's been out there for a while, and it's kind of that chat type conversation that you can have around your documents and around your workspaces. But technically speaking, ND Thread is the hub for all this activity that's happening, tying things together with ChatLink and kind of driving processes. So ND Thread is a powerful, they refer to it as kind of the hub for the entire plan solution. Okay, so what's new? They're going to be expanding the ChatLink integration aspects, and they're going to be NetDocuments and ND Thread plugins that'll be made available so you can easily view content through Teams that comes back from NetDocuments. And then even beyond that, what's coming down the road is even more ChatLink integration. They talked about things like document unfurling, seamless upload capabilities, bringing content into the Teams chats, and syncing content. And again, that syncing of content between NetDocuments and Teams will all be driven by the ND Thread engine. So they're continuing to expand on that ChatLink integration, providing a lot of power because they recognize that many organizations are moving to Teams as a pretty standard form of collaboration. And by providing that interface back to NetDocuments where the content can be stored securely, becomes a very powerful tool. So we talked about the findings aspect, and that's coming with Smart View. Within the tasks, they are going to be adding on task templates, so you can basically build out tasks and subtasks and basically pre-build those workflows to apply. There's going to be integration with Microsoft Outlook, so you can synchronize your due dates between the tasks and Outlook, and also create tasks directly from an email object. And then the last item they mentioned in the plan solution that's coming is custom task fields. So you'll start to apply custom metadata, like billing codes and things, to those tasks to be able to help you track things and kind of carry that metadata forward. The next solution is Deliver. And so within Deliver, it includes Set Builder and Collab Spaces. So it seems like this doesn't necessarily include as many actual product offerings, but they're pretty powerful things. So if you've not seen Set Builder before, it's the idea of being able to kind of organize your work content into a final deliverable. Some organizations will use it for things like closing binders, project binders, or whatever that might be. But to compile multiple documents, to have individuals contribute their aspects of that, and to merge it into one final deliverable to be able to share. And then Collab Spaces is the ability to then work with external parties and provide a secure and audited means of sharing content, and basically restricting what they have access to. Giving them access to be able to potentially read content, maybe contribute content, but it's also putting the control of that potentially in the hands of designated administrators or end users, not necessarily IT. So you can allow certain business owners to drive the process of who creates collab spaces, who has the ability to give access to collab spaces and create external groups. So you no longer have to work directly through IT to be able to be creating these accounts. And then what's coming here for Deliver? Multi-factor authentication. And so right now, they have multi-factor authentication available for external users. Well, it'll be this month, and then for all users by January of 2021. And they note that it specifically works with Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator. So those are the MFA platforms that they support right off the bat there. And so the other note in terms of what's coming is the integration across these various solutions. And they spoke of things like creating tasks from Set Builder and linking it back to the set. And so you'll start to see tasks, Set Builder, and other components, start to kind of work together more seamlessly and be able to leverage those as one broader solution. As we move into the next solution, and the final one that we touch on here is Learn, and that includes NetKnowledge. And if you haven't heard about NetKnowledge, it's an analytical engine that's powered by BA Insight. And when we talk about enterprise search, for the NetDocuments side of this, it does leverage the pre-existing NetDocuments indexing. So it doesn't have to reindex all of your documents to be able to take advantage of it and provide you with that search capability. They also note that any of the BA Insight connectors that are available, and you can check their website for the full list, would be available to integrate with NetKnowledge as well. And so you're kind of able to build your enterprise search, leveraging the NetDocuments indexing for that content, and then expanding it out to other platforms. And then the second item there in terms of Learn is what they refer to as ideas from Splunk. And so they use Splunk for a lot of their systems monitoring, and now they're starting to work to expose that data to us as administrators and end users of our systems. And so when we look at this and we talk about what's coming, they've got cabinet and repository analytics. So that's going to show us things about operations, software, and geolocation dashboards. So we can get counts of total versus active documents, workspaces, and collab spaces. We can get a breakdown of our files and storage. And we can also see, the top workspaces and collab spaces being used based on the activity and to kind of identify those. The geolocation dashboard is going to give us kind of that map of where our users are connecting from, and we can look for any unusual behavior there. And that aspect of it is going to be available next year. From the end user side of things, they're going to give us the ability to kind of get workspace analytics. The end users can go in and see who are the most active users internally or externally, how many documents, what are contacts that are associated with a given workspace, document type information, activity by day, and the most frequently used documents. And again, that's also touted to be delivered next year. So that gets us through the various solutions. As I noted before, part of Elevate was also customer stories. Here you can see that we at Affinity hosted a fireside chat where we shared interviews with several of our customers talking about how they went live during the pandemic and handled remote deployments or other challenges they faced. And again, this content's all out there on the NetDocuments Elevate site to watch. But it was really good to hear from customers in terms of how they were solving challenges and how they were dealing with difficult situations and what creativity they were able to use. When we further talk about innovation and how, we talked about the traditions of the Elevate conference, they did a lot to also innovate to try to make it more meaningful in a remote situation. So it was a global conference. They had some regional segments, so you could potentially attend your own welcomes, your own, certain sessions that were targeted towards your region versus the more broad sessions. It also allowed us to interact and get to know folks from other parts of the world as we were chatting within certain sessions. They had power hours that were hosted by some of the vendors that supported NetDocuments and Elevate. And so you had 10 or 12 there that would do 15-minute quick presentations about what they offer, what their solutions are, and how they tie to NetDocuments. They also had interesting executive chats. They basically scheduled time for leadership at NetDocuments to be available. They took pre-submitted questions as well as live questions that were submitted via the chat, and they just had some open conversation and addressed any of the issues and questions and concerns that people were raising, topics and trends and things like that. In addition to all the live content that they posted, there was a number of recorded sessions that are out there, informational sessions where there was a lot of learning that could be had, things like that Power Automate connector, deployment techniques, and other things like that a wealth of information that's available on their site. As we get back to that personal touch, Bobby Tyndall did the presentation of their work-inspired scholarship. And so as we talk about, giving back, Bobby his quote was basically, "With great success comes great responsibility." and NetDocuments had aspired to create scholarships to help people get education. And so they were able to come up with the funding for 3 $10,000 scholarships with paid internships and mentoring that are going to be given away in December. And they're going to make this an annual thing that the company is going to do. But just kind of finding a way to say, we have the ability to give back, to change people's lives, and to take what we have as some of the blessings we have to give to others. So it was very powerful, and you can see it was a very emotional thing for a lot of the folks at NetDocuments to be able to achieve this. And then they did, for the first time in the history of Elevate, they did have an awards portion where they gave awards out. So a little bit more on that later. A few of the other topics that were presented, there was a Women Who Lead, a very powerful session talking about women in leadership and some of the stresses that they faced now with the work from home situation and the various things that they're balancing back and forth, the expectations that are there, and the questionable boundaries. What are the boundaries now that when we were working remotely? What are the expectations of hours of the day, certain commitments and things like that? Probably the most noteworthy quote that came out of this was "Let the gray hairs go," and basically stop trying to put forward this impression that we're all perfect and that we don't make mistakes. Understand we're all going through something, and that there are a lot of challenges to face, and we can all just be human about it and understand that there are challenges, and we can kind of go forward together to the best solution there. So, and there was also a session on SALI, the Standards for Advancement for the Legal Industry. This is an initiative where they're trying to bring together various parties, the buyers, providers, vendors, associations, and academics within the legal space to create standardizations for technology advancements, for better workflow and processes, and just more consistency across the industry. They had conversations about the idea that a lot of folks have worked differently, have been resistant to change, and as they establish some standards, it will make this all easier for adoption and for better delivery across the legal industry. And then I'd be remiss not to mention the Affinity superheroes were in attendance at the conference. We had over 25 attendees from our team participating. And as we talk about the awards, we were actually fortunate enough to be given 2 awards, the Strategic Law Worldwide Partner of the Year and also the Implementation Partner of the Year. So if you didn't get a chance to meet our superheroes there will be time later on. But as I mentioned, if you had subscribed or at least registered for Elevate, if you attended or not, it's still available there. And they had mentioned that it was going to be available for a couple of weeks post-conference. I'm trying to find out what exactly that date is that they'll bring that down. But if you still have registered and you have access to the site, you can always go back and watch content again and rewatch it, or maybe watch some things that you missed. And then the last point I'm making here is that as they were winding this down, Josh had basically talked about that Elevate and the inspiration that they're working towards is now leading to, in 2021, it's going to be Inspire as the conference as opposed to Elevate. So in 2021, we'll be looking forward to Inspire 2021 and what that will bring for us. So a few the site resources that are here for the Elevate 2020 site itself. NetDocuments posted, their own team posted a blog with their recap of the event that you can watch. And then I did also reference the marketplace here for FedRAMP, so you can go back and look at those designations that are there. So Karen, I will hand it back to you.
Great, thank you, Ron. Elevate was a really great event, so thanks for sharing that recap with us. There were a couple of questions, if you don't mind. I think they're going to be pretty quick ones. The first one was, can you remind us of the ETA for DLP, specifically the restricting downloading?
Restricting downloading. I wonder if I know who's asking this question, because I actually submitted a question to Jed to try to see if I can get specifics, because technically right now you can block downloading of files, but that's using the NetDocuments specific download feature. But the enhancement to where you're basically forcing them to use the previewer is coming. And so based on a request from another customer, I actually submitted that to Jed Cawthorn, who's the product manager over the Protect piece of it. And I'm waiting to hear back when they think they'll release that. So that one I'm waiting to hear back on.
Okay, great. And let's do one other, and then the other couple have to do with costs, and we'll reach out to folks directly with those. But the other question is, are there any changes expected in licensing? And if you know if any of those are planned.
Well, I can tell you that with the solutions, they're basically taking an approach where they feel like these pieces fit together. And so if you are a traditional document management customer, the chances are you kind of fall underneath the Organize umbrella. And that may mean today, though, that you don't necessarily have everything that's a part of Organize. Maybe you didn't opt for ND Mail, or maybe you didn't opt for NetDocuments OCR, maybe they weren't even available when you signed up. So at the time of renewal, I mean, it's definitely something that can be discussed in terms of how you can be shifted into the new model for the solutions if you want to add those components on. But going forward, they kind of have these solution, and I'll call them bundles, even though that's not really what they're referring to them as. They kind of get packaged together, and there's a per user, per year cost that goes with them. And so that pricing itself, that gets into some other details that I don't necessarily have knowledge of, but that's the general model, is that under the solutions, there'll be a per user, per year fee, and you can kind of piece those together how you see fit.
Great, that sounds good. And one other one that just crept in, what does FedRAMP stand for?
So FedRAMP is it's the federal, I have to go back and look that up myself to see it, but basically in working with like the United States Attorney's Office as an oncoming customer of NetDocuments and other government organizations, they require things to be FedRAMP ready before they'll even consider moving to that platform. It's basically saying that they're meeting a certain designation, and a partner has been nice enough to share with me Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program. So thank you for that, Aparna. But that's basically a level of certification that's required to work with a lot of the government organizations and be able to store their data.
Great. We do have a couple of other questions with regard to some specific cost questions. So if you asked one of those, we will definitely reach out to you separately and answer those because it looks like they're pretty specific to what you have. So I just want to say thank you to Ron for doing such a great job, and thanks to all of you for attending. If you were intrigued by Ron's presentation this afternoon and want to learn more about Elevate, NetDocs, or have any other document management questions, I encourage you to take advantage of our free 30-minute DMS consultation. This is your chance to speak with one of the DMS experts at Affinity and get those important questions answered. Just reply to the follow-up email I'm about to send, and I'll do the rest. We do have some more DMS-focused sessions coming up in November and December when our team of experts will look at collaboration and compare document management solutions. Be sure to pop over to affinityconsulting.com/webinars and check out all of our upcoming webinars. And please do share your feedback with us on the survey that follows. I hope you'll join us again soon. Stay safe and healthy, everyone.
Thanks all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.